The silver ship of the Vazaran Empire descended through Earth's atmosphere with the grace of a falling star. Inside, Princess Ayla stood by the viewing portal, her iridescent skin catching the light, as she watched the blue planet grow larger. This was her first diplomatic mission without her father, the Emperor, and she was determined to make it successful. "We will land in 5 minutes, Your Highness," said Krelnak, her guardian since childhood. His tall frame towered over her, his expression stern as always. "Remember, these humans are new to galactic affairs. They are considered lesser beings." Zayla nodded but said nothing. She had studied humans extensively and found them fascinating, not lesser. Their short lives burned so brightly compared to the centuries-long existence of Vazarans. The landing was smooth. Earth officials greeted them with practiced smiles and formal words. Zayla followed protocol, keeping her antennae perfectly still to show respect as she stepped onto human soil for the first time. That's when she noticed him. Among the human security team stood a man different from the others. He wasn't the tallest or the most decorated, but something about him caught her attention. His eyes, alert, intelligent, watching everything. The patch on his uniform read Lieutenant John Carter. The Earth officials led them to a large room for the welcoming ceremony. Humans and Vazarans stood awkwardly together, two species trying to bridge the vast differences between them. A server carrying drinks stumbled near the Vazaran ambassador, nearly spilling liquid on his ceremonial robes, an insult that could end negotiations before they began. Lieutenant Carter moved quickly. He caught the tray with one hand while steadying the server with the other. Not a drop spilled. He smiled at the ambassador and said something that made the tense moment pass. Zayla's antennae twitched with interest. The quick thinking, the physical grace, the easy smile, all so different from the calculated movements of Vazaran males. "Who is that human?" she asked her aide. "A security officer, Your Highness. Lieutenant John Carter of the North American Alliance." Later, during the formal dinner, Zayla broke protocol. She approached the human general in charge of security. "I would like Lieutenant Carter assigned as my personal security liaison during my stay," she said. The general looked surprised. "Your Highness, we have more senior officers who..." The lieutenant showed quick thinking today. "I value that quality." Krelnak appeared at her side, bristling with disapproval. "Princess Zayla, we have our own security team. It is not appropriate to..." "We are guests on Earth, Krelnak," she said firmly. "It would honor their customs to accept their protection. Lieutenant Carter will do." Across the room, John Carter received the news with a frown. Guard duty for an alien princess was not what he had trained for. His commander shrugged at his questioning look. "The princess requested you personally, Carter. Consider it an honor." "But sir, I'm not a diplomat. I'm a soldier. And soldiers follow orders. Report to the embassy tomorrow at 700. That night, Zayla sat in her quarters reviewing the next day's meetings. The main purpose of her visit: seeking allies against the Drakari Collective, whose ships had been testing Vazaran borders for months. Humans, with their resourcefulness and unpredictability, could be valuable allies. Her thoughts drifted to Lieutenant Carter. There was something about him, something different. In Vazaran society, where every match was calculated for genetic compatibility and psionic strength, such interest in an alien was unheard of, especially for royalty. Zayla touched the crystal pendant at her neck, the symbol of her royal bloodline. She was here to secure an alliance for her people's survival. Nothing more. Yet as she closed her eyes to sleep, it was the lieutenant's alert gaze that followed her into dreams. Lieutenant John Carter stood outside the Vazaran embassy at exactly 700 hours. The morning sun reflected off the building's strange metal that seemed to shift colors with the light. He straightened his uniform and reminded himself this was just another assignment. Princess Zayla appeared in the doorway, her silver blue skin glowing in the sunlight. Her formal robes had been replaced by simpler clothing, though the crystal pendant still hung at her neck. "Good morning, Lieutenant," she said. Her voice had a musical quality that human voices lacked. "Your Highness." John bowed slightly. "What is your schedule today?" "I have no official meetings until tonight." Her antennae moved slightly forward. "I wish to see your city. The real city, not just government buildings." John hesitated. "I'm not sure that's approved in your security plan." "I am approving it now." A hint of a smile. "Show me how humans really live." And so began the strangest day of John's career. He took Princess Xela to a public park where children played and dogs ran. She watched with intense curiosity. "Your young ones make so much noise," she observed. "Vazaran children are taught to be silent in public." "Kids should be kids," John said. "Making noise is part of growing up human." They visited a small cafe where Xela carefully sipped hot chocolate, her eyes widening at the taste. "So sweet. We have nothing like this." As the day continued, John found himself forgetting she was an alien princess. Her questions were endless but thoughtful, and she listened to his answers with genuine interest. "Tell me about yourself, John Carter," she said as they sat on a bench watching boats on the lake. "Not the soldier, the human." John rubbed the back of his neck. "Not much to tell. Grew up in Minnesota, farm country. Joined the military to see more than cornfields. Never expected to see aliens, though." "And your family?" "Parents still run the farm. Sister's a doctor in Chicago." He turned the question back to her. "What about Vazaran families? You have parents, brothers, sisters." Xela's expression grew more serious. "Vazarans do not have families as humans do. We are born to genetic matches, raised in age groups. I was identified as royal blood at birth, separated for special training." "That sounds lonely." "It is our way." Her antennae drooped slightly. "Royal blood carries responsibility. We are matched carefully to maintain psionic abilities." "Psionic? You mean like telepathy?" Xela nodded. "All Vezirans have some ability. Royals have the strongest." She stopped suddenly. "It is not something we discuss with other species." They walked in silence for a moment before John asked, "So you don't choose who you marry?" "Marry." The translation device flickered. "Ah. No. The Genetic Council selects optimal matches, especially for royalty." John introduced her to his friends, Sam Miller and Lisa Wright, who were having lunch nearby. They were nervous at first, but soon Lisa was showing Xela pictures of her baby daughter on her phone, and Xela was asking about human child rearing with genuine curiosity. As they left the embassy that evening, Xela said, "Thank you, Lieutenant. I have learned more about humans today than in all our briefings. Just doing my job, Your Highness. Tomorrow, more of your world." There was something in her voice. Hope, perhaps. John nodded. "Tomorrow." After she disappeared inside, he stood for a moment, confused by his own feelings. Princess Xela was not just an alien. She was a royal from an advanced civilization. Whatever this strange connection he felt was, it could never be more than professional. From her window, Xela watched him leave. The strange feeling she had first noticed grew stronger. It was like a song she could almost hear whenever he was near. Something no Vazaran had ever reported feeling for a human. Something that would horrify the Genetic Council if they knew. A week passed. Princess Xela attended official meetings by day and explored human culture with John by night. Today they sat in the embassy garden, a small green space designed to make the Vazarans feel at home. "You seem troubled," John said, noticing how her antennae drooped. Xela sighed. "I received a message from home today. The Emperor, my father, is arranging my formal matching ceremony. Prince Thover of the Centauri system has been selected. That's like an engagement." John kept his voice neutral despite the strange twist in his stomach. "More binding. Once the Genetic Council approves, it cannot be broken." She looked away. "It is my duty." John wanted to say something comforting, but what comfort could he offer? This was her culture, her life. Instead, he asked, "What's he like, this prince?" "I have met him 3 times. He is suitable. Strong psionic ability, proper bloodline." Her words were correct, but her tone was flat. A soft chime interrupted them. Hexela's handmaiden Ilara appeared at the garden entrance. Unlike Krelnak, Ilara treated John with warmth. "Your Highness, the ambassador requests your presence," Ilara said with a bow. After Hexela left, Ilara lingered. "She enjoys your company, Lieutenant." John shrugged. "Just doing my job." "No." Ilara's large eyes studied him. "The princess has never shown interest in anyone before. Not even among our kind." "I'm sure you're mistaken," John said uncomfortably. "She experiences resonance when near you. This is unprecedented. Resonance. A psionic connection. Normally, only compatible Vezirans experience it." Ilara tilted her head. "You feel nothing." John thought about the strange awareness he felt around Hexela, like electricity in the air before a storm. "I'm human. We don't have psionic abilities." "Perhaps." Ilara didn't sound convinced. "Be careful, Lieutenant. The princess's path is not her own to choose." Later that evening, John escorted Hexela to the embassy roof where they had set up a small telescope. She had expressed interest in seeing Earth's moon up close. "It's beautiful," she said, looking through the lens. "We have 3 moons, but none with such patterns." When she stepped back, she stumbled slightly. John caught her arm. The moment they touched, a strange sensation flowed between them, like a current or a song. Hexela gasped. "Did you feel that?" she whispered. John nodded, unable to speak. His hand still held her arm, and the sensation continued. A gentle hum in his mind. Hexela stepped closer. "This should not be possible. Humans do not have psionic abilities. What's happening?" His voice was rough. "I don't know, but I can sense you, your thoughts, your feelings." Her antennae reached toward him, quivering slightly. John found himself reaching toward her face, his fingers hovering near her cheek. "Is this allowed?" "No," she whispered, but didn't move away. The door to the roof burst open. Krelnak stood there, his tall frame rigid with anger. "Princess, this is inappropriate." Hexela stepped back quickly. "We were observing Earth's moon, Krelnak. Your father has sent an urgent communication. The Drakari have attacked our outer colonies. You are recalled home immediately." The news hit Hexela like a physical blow. "When?" "We depart tomorrow. The human alliance is no longer a priority." Krelnak's gaze shifted to John, cold and dismissive. "Your services will no longer be required, Lieutenant." After Krelnak escorted Hexela inside, John remained on the roof, staring at the moon. What had just happened between them? And why did the thought of her leaving create such a hollow feeling in his chest? In her quarters, Hexela touched her crystal pendant, feeling it pulse with energy. The resonance with John had triggered something in her psionic abilities, something new and frightening and wonderful, something that made the thought of genetic matching with Prince Thovar unbearable. But her people were under attack. Her duty was clear, wasn't it? John arrived at the embassy before dawn. He hadn't slept. The strange connection he felt with Hexela kept playing in his mind like a song he couldn't forget. He needed to see her one more time before she left. The building buzzed with activity as the Vazaran staff prepared for departure. Ilara spotted him in the lobby and approached. "Lieutenant Carter, the princess asked me to give you this." She handed him a small crystal similar to the one Hexela wore, but smaller. "It is a royal token." "What does it mean?" John asked, turning the crystal in his hand. It seemed to glow faintly at his touch. Ilara looked around nervously. "It means she trusts you. Keep it close." "Can I see her? To say goodbye?" "I will try to arrange it. Wait here." John sat in the lobby, watching Vazaran officials hurry past. None of them acknowledged him. He was just a human, after all. Colonel Frank Martinez, John's commanding officer, entered the lobby and spotted him. "Carter, what are you doing here? Your assignment ended." "Just saying goodbye, sir." Martinez studied him closely. "Be careful, Lieutenant. I've seen how you look at her. Nothing good can come from it. She's not human. Her world is not ours." "I know my place, sir," John replied, but the crystal felt warm in his pocket. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the building. Security officers rushed in, human and Vazaran alike. "What's happening?" John asked, standing quickly. "Breach at the rear entrance," a security officer said. "Possible Drakari infiltration." John's training took over. He drew his weapon and headed toward the sound of shouting. As he turned a corner, he nearly collided with Xela and Krelnak. "Lieutenant." Xela's eyes widened in surprise. "This way, Your Highness." John pointed toward a secure exit. "We need to get you to safety." Krelnak stepped between them. "I will protect the princess." An explosion shook the building. Through the smoke, dark figures appeared, tall, with scaled skin and glowing red eyes. "Drakari soldiers. Target the princess," one hissed. John fired at the Drakari while Krelnak pulled Xela behind a pillar. More Drakari poured in. They were cut off from the exit. "We must reach the ship," Krelnak shouted over the weapons fire. John noticed an air vent above them. "This way." He shot the vent cover off and helped Xela climb into the shaft. Krelnak followed, then John. They crawled through the ventilation system until they reached an exit near the roof. As they climbed out, Krelnak turned to John. "Why are you helping us, human? Your duty ended." "I protect people. That's my duty," John replied. Krelnak's expression changed. "You should know something, Lieutenant. Princess Xela is not just royalty. She is the catalyst, born once every 1,000 years with the power to enhance our species' psionic abilities. That is why she must mate with Prince Thover. That is why the Drakari want her." Xela looked away, unable to meet John's eyes. "You need to get her to your ship," John said, ignoring the pain in his chest at Krelnak's words. They reached the roof. The Vazaran ship waited, engines humming. As they ran toward it, more Drakari appeared, blocking their path. "Go!" John pushed Xela toward the ship while firing at the attackers. "I'll hold them off." But Xela grabbed his arm. The moment they touched, the same strange connection flowed between them, stronger now. In his mind, John heard her voice clearly. "Come with me." John stared at her. "You're in my head." Yes, her antennae reached toward him. The resonance grows stronger. This should not be possible with a human. Krelnak watched them with growing alarm. "Princess, we must leave now." Xela looked from Krelnak to John, torn between duty and desire. The crystal at her neck pulsed with bright light. "I cannot leave him," she said finally. Krelnak's expression hardened. "Then you doom us all." The Drakari closed in around them on the embassy roof. John counted at least 12 attackers with more coming. Behind them, the Vazaran ship hummed, ready for takeoff. "We cannot stay," Krelnak insisted. "The princess must return to her people." "Go," John told Xela. "Your people need you." Xela touched her crystal pendant, which glowed brighter in response. "There is another ship, a small scout vessel in the lower bay. We can take that." "Princess," Krelnak's voice rose in alarm. "Your father commanded your return." Xela faced him, her antennae straight with determination. "Tell my father I am pursuing a different path to save our people. Take the main ship. Draw the Drakari away from Earth." Krelnak's expression showed confusion, then understanding. "You feel the human is important. I know he is." She held out the glowing crystal. "The resonance proves it." The Drakari were almost upon them. Krelnak made a decision. He pulled out his weapon and fired at the attackers. "Go now," he told them. "I will cover your escape and tell the Emperor what you have chosen." John and Xela ran back into the building, racing down emergency stairs while alarms blared around them. They'd reached the lower bay where a small, sleek vessel waited. "Can you fly this thing?" John asked as they climbed inside. "Yes." Sayla's hands moved over the controls with practiced ease. "Simple for me." The ship rose from the bay just as Drakari soldiers burst through the door. Weapons fire bounced off the ship's shields as they shot into the sky. "They'll follow us," John said, watching Earth grow smaller below them. "Yes." Sayla set a course away from both Earth and the Vazaran homeworld. "We need somewhere neutral, somewhere safe to understand what is happening between us." As they escaped Earth's atmosphere, John noticed several ships in pursuit, some Drakari, but also a Vazaran vessel. "Your people are following us too," he said. Sayla nodded sadly. "They will try to rescue me from you." "From me? I'm not kidnapping you." She gave him a small smile. In their eyes, you have stolen the catalyst, their hope for the future. As they flew deeper into space, Sayla taught John how to read the ship's displays. Each time their hands touched, the mental connection between them grew stronger. John began to feel a strange new awareness, like he could sense the space around him without looking. "What's happening to me?" he asked. "Your mind is opening," Sayla explained. "Humans are not supposed to have psionic abilities, but you do. Latent, untrained, but present. How is that possible?" "I don't know." She watched him with wonder. "But I intend to find out." They set course for a neutral space station called Haven, where different species traded and mixed freely. As they traveled, John practiced focusing his new awareness under Sayla's guidance. Sometimes he could almost read her thoughts. "The Drakari ships are falling behind," John noticed, feeling their presence grow distant. "They cannot match our speed," Sayla said, "but they will not give up. There is something more happening here than a royal leaving her duties." "What do you mean?" Sayla's expression grew serious. "The Drakari fear something. An old prophecy speaks of the catalyst joining with an unexpected source, creating power that could threaten Drakari dominance. And they think I'm this unexpected source." "Perhaps." She looked at him intently. "The resonance between us is unprecedented. No human has ever connected with a Vazaran mind before." John sat back, trying to absorb everything. A week ago, he was a simple soldier. Now he was fleeing through space with an alien princess, developing strange mental powers, and possibly part of some ancient prophecy. "Where exactly are we going?" he asked. "To find someone who studies forbidden knowledge," Sayla replied. "Someone who might explain why a human and a Vazaran princess can share thoughts." Haven's space station hung in the darkness like a glowing wheel. Ships of many shapes and sizes docked at its outer ring. John and Sayla approached in their small vessel, weary after 3 days of constant travel. "We need to find Dr. Olivia Grant," Sayla said as they docked. "She studies both human and Vazaran biology. If anyone knows why we share this connection, it's her." They left their ship and entered the bustling station. Aliens of all kinds moved through the corridors. John stayed close to Sayla, aware of curious stares. A human and a Vazaran princess traveling together was an unusual sight. "How do you know this doctor?" John asked. "She visited our world 5 years ago. The Genetic Council rejected her research as dangerous. They said mixing species was against natural order." John raised an eyebrow. "Is that what's happening to us? Mixing?" Sayla's antennae twitched. "I don't know." They found Dr. Grant in a small lab at the far end of the medical section. She was a middle-aged woman with gray-streaked hair and sharp eyes that widened when she saw them. "Princess Sayla, this is unexpected." Her gaze shifted to John. "And who is this?" "Lieutenant John Carter, Earth Defense Force." John extended his hand. Dr. Grant shook it, studying him closely. "A human soldier and a Vazaran princess. Now, I've seen everything." Sayla explained their situation. The resonance, John's developing abilities, their escape from both Drakari and Vazaran forces. Dr. Grant listened intently, then took blood samples from both of them. As she analyzed the results, John felt a familiar sensation. Ships approaching the station. "Someone's coming," he said. "Multiple vessels. I can feel them." Dr. Grant looked at him in surprise. "You can sense them. Fascinating." The doctor's computer beeped. She studied the screen and gasped. "This is impossible. Lieutenant, your DNA contains sequences I've only seen in Vazaran royalty. Sequences that shouldn't exist in humans at all." "What does that mean?" John asked. "It means your species aren't as separate as everyone believes." Dr. Grant turned to them. "There was contact long ago, interbreeding. The records were erased, but the genetics remain in certain human bloodlines." A station-wide alert interrupted them. "Attention. Vazaran diplomatic vessel requesting emergency docking. All citizens please clear main docking area." "They've found us," Sayla whispered. 20 minutes later, they stood in Haven's main council chamber. Krelnak entered, followed by a tall, regal Vazaran whose crystal pendant was twice the size of Sayla's. "Father," Sayla said, bowing deeply. The Emperor of the Vazaran Empire looked at his daughter, then at John, his expression unreadable. "You have broken tradition, daughter. Left your duties. Fled with this human." His voice was deep and resonant. "The Genetic Council demands his execution and your immediate return." "I invoke the right of discernment," Sayla said clearly. The Emperor froze. Krelnak made a sound of surprise. "The right has not been used in 3 generations," the Emperor said. "It is my right as royal blood." Sayla stood straight, her voice steady. "I claim that old traditions must be tested when new evidence appears." "What evidence?" Sayla nodded to Dr. Grant, who stepped forward with her findings. "Human and Vazaran DNA show ancient connections, Your Majesty." The lieutenant carries royal markers. The Emperor's antennae twitched in shock. "Impossible." "Show him," Sayla said to John. John reached out with his mind as Sayla had taught him. He focused on the Emperor's presence and pushed a simple thought toward him. "Peace." The Emperor's eyes widened. "He touched my mind." He turned to Krelnak. "Prepare the ritual chamber. The human will be tested under the right of discernment." "And if he fails?" Krelnak asked. "Then he dies, and the princess returns to fulfill her duty to our people." The Emperor looked at Sayla. "Is this what you wish to risk for this human?" Sayla took John's hand. The resonance between them flowed strong and clear. "Yes," she said simply. The ritual chamber aboard the Emperor's ship glowed with soft blue light. John stood in the center, wearing a simple white robe the Vazarans had given him. Around him, 7 elders sat in a half-circle, their antennae extended toward him. "The right of discernment tests the spirit and mind," the Emperor explained. "If you are truly compatible with the catalyst, you will pass. If not..." He did not finish the sentence. Sayla watched from the side, not allowed to interfere. Her eyes met John's, giving him silent strength. "Begin," the Emperor commanded. The elders closed their eyes. John felt pressure against his mind. 7 powerful consciousnesses pushing into his thoughts. It hurt. He wanted to resist but remembered Sayla's advice. "Don't fight. Open yourself to them." John let go of his mental barriers. The pressure changed to a flow of images and feelings. Memories not his own. He saw the Vazaran homeworld, felt the horror of precarious attacks, understood the desperate need for the catalyst. "He receives," one elder said with surprise. A new presence entered John's mind. Colder, more calculating. Prince Thovar had arrived and joined the testing. "This human cannot possibly understand our ways." Thovar's thoughts pushed against John's. "He is primitive, weak." John didn't respond with anger. Instead, he shared his own memories. Earth's blue skies, his family farm, the feeling of rain on skin, the concept of human freedom. Through it all, he focused on one truth. His feelings for Sayla were real, not just some biological resonance. The elders stirred, surprised by the clarity of his projections. Suddenly, alarms blared through the ship. The ritual stopped as everyone looked up in confusion. Drakari vessels approaching. A voice announced over the speaker system. Battle stations. The ship rocked as the first shots hit its shields. The Emperor rose quickly. Secure the princess, he ordered Krelnak, and the human. Guards moved to take John away, but a massive explosion tore through the side of the ritual chamber. Through the smoke and debris, Drakari soldiers poured in, weapons firing. Protect the Emperor, the guards shouted, forming a line of defense. In the chaos, John saw Prince Thovar slip behind the Emperor, a small weapon in his hand. Without thinking, John launched himself forward, tackling the prince just as he fired. The shot went wide, missing the Emperor. Traitor, John shouted, struggling with Thovar. He's working with the Drakari. Guards pulled them apart, confused about who to restrain. The human lies. Thovar hissed. He arranged this attack to escape judgment. More Drakari forces entered the chamber. One of them called out, "Secure the catalyst and the human. Kill the others." The Emperor's eyes widened as he looked at Thovar. "They know our terms." "How?" Thovar's expression changed to a cold smile. "The Drakari understand the threat better than you, father of Tala. The prophecy must not be fulfilled. You betrayed us." The Emperor's voice shook with rage. Across the room, Drakari soldiers grabbed Exela. John felt her fear through their connection. Without thinking, he reached out with his mind, pushing away the soldiers holding her with a force he didn't know he possessed. Everyone in the room froze in shock. A human using psionic force was impossible. Zayla broke free and ran to John's side. When they touched, her crystal pendant flashed with blinding light. The resonance between them surged, visible now as arcs of blue energy connecting them. "The catalyst awakens," the Emperor whispered. "Stop them," Thovar shouted to the Drakari. But it was too late. The energy surrounding John and Xela expanded, pushing back everyone near them. Their minds joined completely, thoughts and feelings flowing freely between them. Through their shared consciousness, they sensed the entire ship, every person aboard, the Drakari vessels outside. Together, they raised their hands. Blue energy shot from their palms, throwing the Drakari soldiers against the walls with incredible force. The Emperor stared in awe. The prophecy was true. The catalyst and the unexpected source. Thovar screamed in rage as guards restrained him. His betrayal was clear to all now. John and Xela stood in the center of the chamber, still connected by streams of blue energy, their eyes glowing with shared power. The fate of two species now rested in their joined hands. 3 months later, John stood by a large window in the Vazuran royal palace, looking out at the purple sky of Xela's homeworld. The 3 moons hung low on the horizon, just as she had described to him on that night on the embassy roof that now felt like a lifetime ago. Behind him, he heard the soft footsteps he had come to recognize instantly. "Are you ready?" Xela asked, joining him at the window. "As ready as I'll ever be to become the first human Vazuran royal consort," John said with a smile that didn't quite hide his nervousness. The battle against the Drakari had ended quickly after their powers combined. The enemy ships retreated, and Prince Thovar was imprisoned for his betrayal. The Emperor, seeing the prophecy fulfilled before his eyes, accepted what was happening between his daughter and the human soldier. "The Genetic Council is still unhappy," Xela said, her antennae twitching with amusement. "They study our combined abilities for weeks and still cannot explain everything." "Dr. Grant says some things are beyond science," John replied. "Maybe they should accept that. Vazurans do not easily accept what they cannot measure." She took his hand, and the now familiar resonance flowed between them, comfortable and warm. "But they will learn." The palace buzzed with activity. Today was the formal ceremony that would join Xela and John, creating a new kind of bond between their species. Human delegates had arrived, including Colonel Martinez, whose initial disapproval had turned to reluctant support. John's parents had come too. Simple farmers suddenly thrust into interstellar politics. Krelnak appeared at the door. The stern guardian had become one of their strongest allies after witnessing their combined power. "It is time," he said with a formal vow. They followed him to the grand ceremonial hall where hundreds of guests waited, Vazirans in their formal robes and humans in their best attire. At the front stood the Emperor and the human ambassador, together representing the new alliance. John saw his friends, Sam and Lisa, in the crowd, still looking slightly overwhelmed by alien surroundings. His parents sat near the front, his mother dabbing tears from her eyes, his father sitting tall with pride. As John and Selah walked down the center aisle, whispers followed them. Not all approved of this union, but none could deny its power or importance. The Emperor raised his hands for silence. "Today we honor not just a union of two beings, but a new understanding between our peoples," he said. "The old traditions served us well, but traditions must evolve or die. My daughter, the Catalyst, has shown us a new path." The joining ceremony blended both cultures. They exchanged vows in both languages, shared symbolic drinks, and finally placed their hands on Selah's crystal pendant together. As they did, blue energy swirled around them, visible to all witnessing the ceremony. "The resonance accepts their bond," the Emperor announced. That night, a celebration stretched across two worlds. On Earth, humans watched broadcasts of the ceremony, seeing new possibilities for their place in the galaxy. On the Vazaran homeworld, even skeptics had to admit the power they had witnessed was real. John and Selah slipped away from the main celebration, finding a quiet garden where they could be alone. "Are you happy?" John asked, still sometimes wondering if she regretted choosing a simple human over her planned destiny. "More than I ever thought possible," she replied, her antennae gently touching his face in the Vazaran gesture of affection. "We've created something new together." Above them, the energy from their bond rose into the night sky, creating beautiful auroras visible from both their worlds, a symbol of what could happen when old traditions gave way to new possibilities. "What happens now?" John asked. Selah smiled. "Now we write our own story."